I realized that now we would go to the second round, to land. We could not land from the first attempt, so it was an attempt of the second landing. I think the airplane did a couple of such maneuvers. I felt we were landing. Then I heard a bang. It was clear that the airplane had become so much less manageable. My feelings at this moment are that it was over.
Images of this man have gone viral on social media after he miraculously survived a plane crash on Christmas Day. The man has finally spoken, and in this video, we will present to you his testimony in which he reveals what he saw just before the crash and what he did to get out safe and sound. He will conclude by sending a very important message to Muslims around the world. I guarantee you that his heart-touching testimony will leave you speechless. To begin, you have probably watched the terrifying images of the crash of the Azerbaijan Airlines J2-8243 plane that took place on December 25, 2024 in Kazakhstan, leaving 34 dead and some survivors, among whom were seriously injured. It was indeed a heartbreaking sight to watch this plane almost tear in two. However, among the few survivors of the crash, a Muslim man was seen walking off the plane safe and sound, pronouncing loudly the words, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
But what is even more astonishing is that before the crash, the man had filmed the event inside the plane using his smartphone and sent the images to his wife, who was in Russia, to inform her of what was happening. In his clips, yellow oxygen masks are visible hanging over the seats as the jet is about to crash. The air hostess is heard making the announcement in a terrified tone. Inside the plane, there are cries and screams everywhere, but this man's expression seems to be composed as if nothing is wrong. He is seen and heard pronouncing the Shahada and calmly declaring the majesty of Allah. He seems to have totally put all his trust in Allah with great conviction that nothing happens except that it is due to the decree of Allah. After the horrific crash, there were 29 survivors, including the man who continued to praise Allah after stepping off the plane. So who is this man? What really happened inside the plane before the crash, and how was he able to stay peaceful during such a terrifying moment? His name is Subkhankul Rakhimov, and he is an extract from his interview with Anadolu Agency shortly after the crash.
I was born in Tajikistan, grew up there, and I have been in Russia for 24 years. I work here, and I have a family here. During our flight, there was a bang, and I can't tell exactly where it was. I also can't say with certainty that it was over Grozny. I did not see Grozny. I did not see any settlement because of the fog. I was dozing up at this point. Then I felt that the plane was gaining altitude. I opened my eyes, I looked, and there was fog below. Nothing could be seen. I realized that now we would go to the second round, to land. We could not land from the first attempt, so it was an attempt of the second landing. I think the airplane did a couple of such maneuvers. I felt we were landing. Then I heard a bang.
You mean a bang like an explosion, right?
Yes. Some oxygen masks fell off. The aircraft was damaged, and I immediately thought that the plane was going to fall apart. Then I looked, and I realized that it seemed to have started to gain altitude. I then had a thought that something had happened, something was damaged. The plane went up and it leveled off. Then it slowly started to descend. At that moment in the salon, people calmed down because they thought everything was settled. We were now going to make an emergency landing somewhere because of this explosion. Then after some time, the sea had appeared, and the weather had already become clearer. But the plane started to behave somehow inappropriately.
Before we pass this part, where did you hear the explosion? Inside or outside?
Well, I was in the salon, and I heard it there. But that's just my opinion of what it was. Was it a bird or a gas or oxygen tank? Whatever happened, let the experts make a conclusion and let them officially talk about it. What I saw is the panel damage, and I saw that the masks were falling off. Then the aircraft started shaking. It was not the same airplane anymore. It was clear that the airplane had become so much less manageable. My feelings at this moment are that it was over. I was in my last minutes, and I thought that something needed to be done. I asked myself, what can be done in these minutes? We need to earn more bonuses in order to present them to the Almighty. So I started dhikr. I started praying. I had already pronounced the Shahada. I always do that. I always praise Allah every time the plane lands and takes off. I always say, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. I always say that. And then when the explosion occurred, I immediately said, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. I started saying all the words of dhikr I know, and by the will of the Almighty, I surprisingly stayed alive. I want to say to all Muslims that, do not worry. If a Muslim performs prayer 5 times a day, if he remembers the Almighty every day, then in such a situation which any Muslim can find himself, if the Almighty is in his heart, he will be at peace. At such a terrifying moment, a Muslim will tell himself that he has come to terms with what awaits him. The angel who stands next to him, or as we say in the modern world, the 6th sense in his heart will tell him what actions to take. After the fall, I was thrown off in my chair. The stewardess said that we had to cross our arms and press them at the front. I found this position perfect for prayer. At the moment of the crash, I was thrown a couple of times. I remember it well, and I remember how. I remember a fire in front of my eyes. There was some kind of yellow flame. All lasted just some seconds, and then everything became quiet. I was shocked that I was safe and sound. I didn't have any damage. Everything is in mess, but I'm okay, I wondered. Alhamdulillah, I was not the only one safe. Alhamdulillah, a man turned out to be safe behind me, and 2 people turned out to be safe on my side. Alhamdulillah, there were a lot of safe people there besides me. I wonder how did the tail end up to be in front of the plane after the crash? The flight attendant tried her best. If she died, may Allah forgive her sins and admit her to paradise. I don't know Azerbaijani, but during all these troubles she tried to calm people down there. She did everything according to the instructions until the last moment.